Dancin Pete's Tip of the Week, brought to you by Complimentary Horsemanship.
You danced like that?
Yeah, I remember when I used to dance like that, too.
I remember when you used to dance like that.
So today's tip of the week is give the horse the timeline. So many times we get a horse and we think, okay, I'm going to give the trainer or give myself 2 months, and then I'll be doing A, B, C, and D. And the horse has a different thought about it, and then we force the horse, and then before we know it, we're having more trouble. Then we're going to have to call Nathan to come out and fix all this, and probably the first thing he's going to say is, we need to slow down and get the horse to understand this before you can really do those things. So give the horse the timeline.
Yes, this is the, you have the A, B, C, D, and the horse doesn't know the alphabet yet.
That's right.
And so you've got to wait for the signs when you're going, if you're going through a program, if you have a program that you chose and you like, if you're going through a program and you're going through certain stages of, or steps, that you've got to make sure that you've had success in that first stage before you get. And that timeline might not be 2 months or 3 months.
And watching some of these professionals like Buck, you know, so many times I get people, oh, well, Buck does it in this timeline. I'm like, well, when you get his feel and his timing and his experience and his sequencing, you could probably do it that quick too.
Right. And there don't you think a big part of that is if you're not familiar with the signs that you're having success, you might miss something. And obviously somebody like Buck that's been doing it for so long doesn't miss those signs. You might not know.
Well, I always say you're juggling balls. So I'm juggling all these different thoughts. Well, Buck's probably has a cylinder of 10 balls in each 3 cylinders he's juggling. And so that horse just barely gets it, and he goes, I'm going to release on that. And before you know it, he's doing it better than your horse that you've been doing it for 2 years with, because he knew when to release at that moment. So, yeah, it takes experience. There's no shortcuts, and I'm sure Nathan would agree to that. You have to put the time in. And sometimes I always tell people, the people that have done what Nathan's done, I've done with Pat Pirelli, it pays off in the long run. Those long hours, you learn what it is to be a horseman and learn to see those horses and do things quicker. But sometimes I tell people, I don't want to do it quicker. I want to slow it down so that the horse is solid for when you do it.
Right.
So we're helping the horse.
If you're passing the horse on to someone with less experience, you want to make sure that it's polished.
And Nathan's got the advantage. He hands it to Aaron, which is great. But I guarantee you, Aaron's going, wow, this is way better than what I'm used to riding.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference, I think, being able to give, well, for somebody that is competing at that level, at that kind of top Grand Prix level, having somebody that you give a newer horse to, so you can carry on working on your horses that you're competing on already. You get a new horse in and you know that somebody else has kind of gone through all that, right. Because you never know. There's no way that you can know who necessarily started that horse, unless you have a relationship where you always buy from the same person, but that's not the case with
and somebody else must mishandled him on the transport.
You don't know what bad habits
we don't
maybe
know what happened in
so
the
having
week
all
he came
that
over.
Right, exactly. And that kind of spins me off into a topic that I definitely want to talk about a lot more in the future, but we have a few minutes left. So is horse behavior. There's a lot of people that don't realize that horses have a way of reacting and acting and behaving that's relative to the animal that they are. And we talked a little bit about, predator and prey. They, in the wild, were a prey animal. They're domesticated, so it shouldn't be anything preying on them. But we can easily become that predator to the horse if we don't do things the right way. And one of the interesting things about horses is there's a lot of signs of how they feel and how they're reacting to what you're doing with them. And I think that's a good topic.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about horse behavior.
Tell us about horse behavior. Mm-hmm. Well, the biggest thing I think for me is learning horse behavior is watching and observing. So I have a buddy that was at SeaWorld, minimum 2,000 hours of observation. So like Nathan was telling us when he was watching Buck for hours and hours and hours, that taught him a lot of, oh, that horse looked like this before this happened, and now I can see it. So the behavior of the horse first comes on observation, because their body language is how they communicate with each other. And so, and horse behavior is also touch. I always tell people, if I say lift your left and I don't touch your left arm or your left leg, you have no clue. So I left out the last word in it. Horses touch each other. That's how they learn. They go, oh, you touched my shoulder. I need to move it over here. You touched my nose. I need to go over here, or I need to stop, or I don't need to get in your bubble. So that's one of the big things that people don't understand in horse behavior is they're not going, okay, come on, don't get over there. They'll go over there and bite and they'll kick and do all those kind of things. And we have to interact like that sometimes the same way. And especially if you get a horse that everybody's been going, come on, I really want you to go. Then you might have to get a little bigger than what you want to. But if he understands it, and I get a lot of horses that are having behavior problems, and it's because mom doesn't want to touch them. And then I finally get him to touch, and the horse blows out and licks and chews, and she's like, why does he do that? And I said, because he's going, oh, you're clear. Thank you. And if he had another gelding with him, you'd see him jumping in the air, biting and kicking and having a good old time. It's like I was in college, I was play fighting with a buddy of mine who had a brother. I had a sister. He popped me one, and I was like, whoa, that's not playing. And he goes, that's how me and my brother play. And that's what we have to understand. They don't play the same way that we think play is.
You know, I think that's one of the reasons I like the name of Aaron Vale's farm.
What is that?
Thinks like a horse.
Thinks like a horse. There you go.
You've got to think like a horse.
Yes, ma'am.
You really do.
And if you think about it, horse behavior and human behavior, when I study this, you know, what do horses do? They bite at each other's necks to turn, right? What do we do when we fight? I'm going to try to punch you in the face and turn your face that way and take you to the ground. Horses do the same thing. And we're bubble-oriented. Horses are bubble-oriented. You know, and if somebody goes, oh, no, we're treat-oriented, and I get nose-to-nose with them. Tick Maynard said that one day, and I go, I'm going to get nose-to-nose with Tick and talk to him for about 5 minutes. I guarantee you he's going to be space-oriented. He's going to be like, get out of my space.
You're too close.
Yeah, and that's what I teach a lot is space, gaining that space. And I watch horses, once you establish that bubble that's consistent, those horses, they go over there and go, oh, you're looking out for danger, I bet, because you can look out for your space. So that's an important thing is space. Everybody has a bubble.
Really is, yeah. And you really have to, just because they're domesticated in our lives, doesn't mean they don't have those instincts that they had when they were in the herd, which is
right,
which is self-preservation, however that may be. I
always tell people the 4 things that horses do when they're scared that begin with F: fight, flight, freeze, and faint. And somebody goes, you seen a horse faint? I said, oh yeah. We were doing some cattle, and we walked into the water to cool our horses off, and the horse flopped to the ground and went under the water, and I looked at the cow boss, and I was like, and he goes, oh, he'll come up. 5 minutes later, he's like, pull him up, pull him up. He was out.
He fainted.
Oh, yeah, he fainted. I had to pull him up before he drowned.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So watch your horse's behavior and be aware, you know, of how they feel. And yes, that's how it's really going to help you in your success, and then go slowly through the steps.